You know, there's something nobody really prepares us for. We spend our lives thinking about careers, raising families, maybe traveling a little when we can, and then one day we wake up and realize the world has gotten quieter. The phone doesn't ring as much, the calendar isn't packed with birthdays and school events, and the faces we've known for decades aren't always sitting across the table anymore. It can feel like life has slowed to a whisper, and if we're not careful, that whisper can turn into silence. But here's the truth I want you to remember from the very start. Being over 80 does not mean life is over. It does not mean we're here just to wait for the days to pass. It can mean something far more exciting. Freedom to shape each day exactly the way we want. And yes, that's true even if you live alone. Maybe especially if you live alone. I've met people in their 80s and 90s who live with more joy and energy than folks half their age. The secret? They've learned a few simple rules, habits really, that keep their bodies strong, their minds sharp, and their hearts full. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Not complicated theories, not impossible routines, but real-life ways you can keep living strong and proud, no matter what year it says on your birth certificate. Let's start with something that's more powerful than most people realize. Moving your body every single day. Now, I'm not talking about running marathons or lifting heavy weights in some noisy gym. I'm talking about the kind of movement that fits naturally into your life. If you can walk, then walk. If your knees complain, use a sturdy chair and move your arms in big, sweeping circles. Stand up and sit down slowly a few times. Stretch your arms toward the ceiling and feel the muscles in your sides wake up. The goal is not to impress anyone, it's to remind your body it's still in the game. I once knew a man named Harold who started every morning by marching in place in his kitchen while his coffee brewed. He said it made the coffee taste better because his body felt alive before that first sip. It's not about the march, it's about the message you send yourself when you say, "I'm still strong enough to move." And you don't have to wait for a perfect time. In fact, don't wait at all. When you're putting laundry away, carry one item at a time and walk the extra steps. When you're brushing your teeth, stand on one foot for a few seconds, then switch. The smallest movements, done regularly, keep your muscles from forgetting what they were made for. They also keep your balance sharp, which is one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself in your 80s. A steady step can mean the difference between another good day and an avoidable injury. Another thing about movement, it's not just for your body, it wakes up your mind. It tells your brain, we're still needed here. That's a message your brain loves to hear. Now, once your body is awake, there's another habit that's just as important, though far too many people ignore it: staying connected to others. Living alone after 80 can sometimes feel like standing on an island. It's peaceful, yes, but it can also be lonely. And loneliness isn't just a feeling. It's something that can slowly drain your energy, cloud your thinking, and make the world feel colder than it really is. The good news: connection is something we can create at any age. It doesn't have to mean hosting big parties or filling your home with noise. It can be as simple as calling an old friend for 5 minutes or saying hello to a neighbor when you see them outside. These small threads of connection weave a net that keeps us from falling into isolation. I remember visiting a woman named Elsie. She was 87, lived alone, and her family was spread out across the country. She made it a point to write one postcard a day to someone she knew. Sometimes family, sometimes old neighbors, sometimes even a kind nurse she'd met years ago. She told me it wasn't just about brightening their day. It was about reminding herself that she was still part of the great, messy, wonderful web of human life. And every time she got a letter or a call in return, she felt the truth of that. If postcards aren't your style, maybe it's a quick call to someone you haven't spoken to in years. Maybe it's joining a group that meets once a week at the library or the community center. These moments of contact are like sunlight for the soul. They keep your days from blending into one another. They give you something to look forward to. And here's something I've noticed. When we reach out to others, even in small ways, we often discover they needed it just as much as we did. It becomes a gift both ways, and giving is one of the surest ways to feel alive. Movement for the body, connection for the heart. These two things, when done every day, can change the way you see your life after 80. They're not about pretending you're 20 again. They're about making sure every year you do have is lived fully, with strength and purpose. When I talk to people in their later years who seem to glow with energy, they almost always have these habits woven into their daily lives. They don't treat them as chores. They treat them as part of who they are. They don't ask, "Do I feel like walking today?" They just do it. They don't wait until they're lonely to call someone. They reach out before that feeling has a chance to grow. And the beautiful thing? It's never too late to start. You could begin right now, today. Walk to the end of your street and back. Call someone you've been thinking about. You might be surprised at how quickly these small actions start to make you feel more awake, more needed, more alive. Living alone after 80 can be a challenge, yes. But it can also be a season of incredible freedom where you decide how your days will go. You get to set the rhythm. And the first two beats in that rhythm, the ones we've just talked about, are movement and connection. One keeps your body strong, the other keeps your spirit warm. When you start moving more and reaching out to others, something begins to shift inside you. It's almost like the air feels fresher and the colors around you seem a little brighter. That's the body and the heart working together to wake you up to the day. But there's another piece of this puzzle, one that quietly shapes every single choice you make: your mind. Our minds are like gardens. If you plant seeds of curiosity, they grow into energy and creativity. If you let weeds of worry and boredom take over, the days feel heavier. After 80, it's tempting to believe the brain slows down no matter what, but that's not entirely true. The brain loves being used, just like a muscle. The more we challenge it, the better it works for us. You don't need a university degree or complicated puzzles to keep your mind sharp. You just need to keep feeding it new experiences. That might mean learning a song on the piano you've never tried before, even if you don't get it perfect. It might mean asking your grandchild to show you how their phone works and actually practicing until you can send a picture yourself. It could be as simple as trying a recipe you've never made or walking down a street in your neighborhood you've never explored. I once knew an older gentleman named Sam who decided to learn basic Italian at the age of 83. He never planned to travel to Italy. He just thought it sounded beautiful. Every morning, he'd sit by his window with a little phrase book, speaking out loud to the sparrows in the tree outside. "Buongiorno," he'd say, and the sparrows would chirp like they understood. He told me it made him feel like the world was bigger again, even from his own kitchen table. The point is, when you keep learning, you give yourself something priceless: anticipation. That feeling of waking up and thinking, what new thing am I going to discover today? Anticipation keeps your mind alert and your days meaningful. But a strong mind doesn't come from new experiences alone. It also comes from knowing how to handle the storms that pass through. And let's be honest, storms come to everyone at every age. After 80, they might look like health scares, unexpected bills, or losing someone you've known for decades. These moments can make life feel unsteady. One of the most powerful skills you can develop is learning how to steady yourself when life tilts. I call it finding your anchor. Your anchor might be a quiet prayer in the morning. It might be sitting with a cup of tea and watching the sunrise until your breathing slows down. It might be listening to music that reminds you of who you've always been, no matter what's going on around you. I remember visiting a widower named Frank, who kept a small wooden chair on his porch. Every evening, no matter the weather, he'd sit there for exactly 10 minutes. He said it was his way of resetting before going to bed. Some nights, he'd watch the clouds drift across the moon. Other nights, he'd listen to the laughter from the neighbor's yard. That chair became his anchor, his way of saying, no matter what happened today, I'm still here and tomorrow will come. When you have an anchor, you give yourself a place to return to when life feels uncertain. It helps you keep your balance inside and out. And that inner steadiness makes it easier to keep moving, keep connecting, and keep learning, even when the wind picks up. So far, we've talked about moving your body, staying connected to others, keeping your mind sharp, and finding your anchor in tough times. There's another piece that ties them all together, taking care of your daily routines. Now, routines might sound boring, but the truth is, they're the backbone of independence. When you have a rhythm to your day, you spend less energy worrying about what comes next and more energy enjoying it. Simple habits like eating meals at the same time, setting aside moments for light exercise, or having a regular bedtime keep your body and mind in sync. Think of it like this. Your day is a song. Routines are the beat that keeps the music steady. Without a beat, the song gets messy. With it, you can hum along without missing a note. One woman I met, Margaret, swore by her morning ritual. She'd make her bed, open her curtains, and put on a fresh shirt, even if she wasn't going anywhere. She said it made her feel ready to meet the day on her own terms. And I'll tell you, she always had a spark in her eye that showed it worked. That's the beauty of routines. You create them yourself. They don't have to be complicated, and they can change with the seasons of your life. What matters is that they keep you moving forward, one steady step at a time. Living alone after 80 is not about filling the hours, it's about shaping them. Movement, connection, mental challenge, emotional anchors, and steady routines. Each one builds on the other, making you stronger than the day before. When you start building your days around movement, connection, curiosity, and steady rhythms, something wonderful happens. You begin to trust yourself again. You realize that living alone doesn't mean being left behind. It means you've got the steering wheel in your own hands. And when you have that control, the next step is making sure you keep yourself as healthy as you can, so the journey stays smooth. Health at this stage of life isn't about chasing perfection. It's about giving your body the right kind of care so it can keep carrying you where you want to go. One of the most overlooked ways to do that is through what we put on our plates. Now, I'm not here to tell you to give up every treat you enjoy. Life is meant to be tasted. But I've seen over and over again that when folks pay a little more attention to their meals, they notice the difference almost immediately. I knew a man named Peter who, at 85, decided to swap out his afternoon cookie for a small bowl of fresh berries. Within a week, he said his energy didn't dip as much in the evenings, and he was sleeping better. You don't have to overhaul everything. You can start with small changes, adding a handful of vegetables to lunch, drinking an extra glass of water in the afternoon, or choosing whole grain bread instead of white. These may sound simple, but over time they give your body the building blocks it needs to stay strong. And if cooking for one feels like more trouble than it's worth, remember that a pot of soup or a simple casserole can be divided into portions and frozen, ready to be warmed up when you need them. Eating well isn't just about strength, it's also about mood. The right food can lift your spirits in ways you might not expect. A colorful plate, with greens, oranges, and reds, does more than feed your body. It feeds your eyes and your sense of joy. Of course, staying healthy isn't just about what we eat. It's also about listening to our bodies closely. I've noticed that as we get older, it's easy to brush off small aches or changes, telling ourselves it's just age. But sometimes, those little signs are our body's way of asking for attention. And the sooner we listen, the easier it is to fix what's going wrong. I once met a woman named Clara who always kept a small notebook by her kitchen phone. She'd jot down anything unusual she noticed, how she slept, whether she felt dizzy, or if she had more trouble than usual walking to the mailbox. Every couple of weeks, she'd look over her notes. If she saw a pattern, she'd bring it up with her doctor. She told me it made her feel like she was working with her doctor as a partner, not just waiting for problems to get worse. That's the kind of self-care that keeps you ahead of trouble. It doesn't mean worrying about every little thing. It means staying alert and respecting the signals your body sends you. Another thing that's worth talking about, and it's something too many people avoid, is safety in your own home. Living alone after 80 is wonderful when you feel confident in your space. But it can become a worry if that space isn't set up to protect you. Think about the rooms you use most often. Is the lighting bright enough so you can see clearly at night? Are the floors free of cords and rugs that could trip you? Can you reach what you need without climbing or stretching too far? These might sound like small details, but they can make a huge difference in keeping you independent. I knew a retired teacher named Ruth who loved baking. One day she decided to reorganize her kitchen so everything she used most often was within arm's reach. She put her heavy mixing bowls on the counter instead of in a low cabinet, kept her spices in a rack right by the stove, and replaced the dim light over her work area with a bright one. She told me she felt freer in her kitchen than she had in years, simply because she wasn't straining, bending, or fumbling. Your home should feel like a partner, not an obstacle. Every small change you make to improve safety is like putting a friendly hand on your own shoulder saying, "I've got you." And while we're on the topic of safety, let's talk about another kind, the kind that comes from being prepared. We all know that emergencies can happen, but they're a lot less frightening when we have a plan. That might mean keeping a list of important phone numbers by the phone and in your wallet. It might mean having a small bag ready with essentials, medications, glasses, a change of clothes, just in case you ever need to leave the house quickly. It could mean setting up a simple system with a friend or neighbor where you check in on each other once a day. Preparation isn't about living in fear. It's about giving yourself the peace of mind to keep living fully. When you know you're ready for the unexpected, you can focus on enjoying the everyday. Living strong after 80 is about making choices that add up. A little more care in what you eat, a little more attention to how your body feels, a little more thought about your surroundings. Together, these things become a foundation, a steady platform that supports every other part of your life. Once you've built a foundation of movement, connection, curiosity, self-care, and safety, something powerful starts to happen. You begin to feel not just capable, but confident. And confidence at this stage of life is like sunlight after a long winter. It warms everything it touches. But there's another part of living strong that doesn't always get enough attention, and that's purpose. Purpose is the reason you get up in the morning, the thing that pulls you forward even when the days feel slow or the weather keeps you inside. Without it, the hours can stretch out too long. With it, the hours seem to fly by. And the beautiful thing about purpose is that it can be as big or as small as you want. It doesn't have to be a grand mission. It can be a gentle reason that belongs entirely to you. I once met a man named George who kept a small vegetable garden in his backyard. He was 89. Every morning, rain or shine, he'd check on his tomatoes, water the lettuce, and talk to his plants as though they were old friends. "They depend on me," he'd say. And that keeps me going. His garden wasn't just about fresh vegetables. It was about responsibility, about being needed. Purpose can be caring for a pet, volunteering once a week, calling a friend who lives alone, or even working on a personal project like writing down your family's stories. These small commitments create meaning, and meaning gives you strength you didn't know you had. Another way to nurture purpose is to keep giving. It's easy to think that after a certain age, our giving days are behind us, but that couldn't be further from the truth. You carry a lifetime of knowledge, skills, and experiences that younger generations can benefit from. Whether it's teaching a grandchild how to cook a favorite dish, sharing your wisdom with a community group, or helping a neighbor fix something, every act of giving sends a message to yourself and to the world. You still have something to offer. And I'll tell you, nothing lifts the spirit quite like being useful. I've seen people go from feeling tired and withdrawn to energized and smiling, simply because they found a way to help someone else. Giving pulls us out of our own worries and reminds us we're part of something bigger. Purpose also grows when you take time to enjoy beauty. That might sound like a luxury, but it's not. It's a need. Beauty is fuel for the spirit. It might be watching the sunrise with a warm cup of tea, listening to a favorite song from your youth, or visiting a park to see the flowers in bloom. When you notice beauty, you remind yourself that life is still worth looking at closely. I once knew a woman named Helen who made it her goal to watch the sunset every single evening from her porch. She said it was her way of collecting moments, like pearls on a string. One day, she told me, I'll look back and see the necklace I made out of all those evenings. That's purpose too. Choosing to notice, to collect, to value what others might overlook. Of course, purpose doesn't have to be quiet. For some, it comes from challenge. Learning something new, taking on a goal, or working toward a milestone can give you the spark you need to stay sharp and motivated. I've met people in their 80s training for a charity walk, learning to paint, or even mastering a new game just for the fun of it. The point isn't whether you become an expert. The point is that you're moving towards something. And here's the truth about purpose. It doesn't just make the days brighter, it makes you stronger. Studies have shown that having something to live for can improve health, boost energy, and even help with memory. But beyond the science, there's the feeling. Waking up with a reason to open your eyes is one of the best gifts you can give yourself. As we grow older, it's easy to believe that the best parts of life are behind us. But the truth is, some of the richest, most meaningful days can happen later, when you're living with intention. Purpose is what turns those days into a story you're proud to tell. And that story becomes even better when you fill it with joy. Now, joy is different from purpose. Purpose keeps you going. Joy makes you glad you're still going. Joy is the laughter that catches you off guard, the taste of your favorite dessert, the sound of an old song that takes you back 50 years in an instant. Joy is found in moments, and the more you look for them, the more they show up. I've noticed that the people who seem happiest after 80 are the ones who treat joy like a habit. They make time for it, they notice it, they create it when it doesn't appear on its own. One gentleman I knew, Walter, kept a jar in his kitchen where he dropped slips of paper each time something made him smile. A good meal, a funny conversation, a warm breeze, he'd write them all down. On days when he felt low, he'd pull out a handful and read them, and it was like stepping into a warm room after being out in the cold. Living strong means giving yourself permission to keep laughing, keep savoring, and keep finding moments worth remembering. You've lived too long and come too far to let the days go by without joy. When you have purpose and joy, life feels fuller. And when life feels fuller, you have more energy to protect what matters most: your independence, your dignity, and your sense of self. Those are treasures worth guarding, and they deserve every bit of your attention. When you've built your days around movement, connection, curiosity, steady care for your health, a safe and supportive home, purpose, and joy, something remarkable happens. You stop thinking about getting through each day and start thinking about living it. And that, my friend, is the heart of surviving alone after 80. It's not about enduring, it's about thriving. But thriving doesn't mean every moment will be perfect. There will still be mornings when your bones ache, when the weather keeps you inside, when memories tug at you a little too hard. Those moments don't take away from the strength you've built. They're simply part of the landscape. What matters is how you meet them. I once visited a man named Albert, who had lived alone since his wife passed away years earlier. He told me that the hardest days used to feel like closed doors, but over time, he learned to see them as rooms he could walk through slowly, looking for something worth noticing. Maybe it was a phone call he'd been meaning to make. Maybe it was an old photograph he hadn't looked at in years. Maybe it was simply the chance to rest and listen to the rain. "A closed door," he said, "isn't locked. It's just quiet." That's a lesson worth holding on to. You can't always change what the day brings, but you can choose how you greet it. And the more you fill your life with habits that keep you strong, physically, mentally, and emotionally, the more you'll be ready for whatever comes. Living alone at this stage isn't about what you've lost. It's about what you still have and what you can still create. You have time, and time is a gift. You have memories, and they're part of the foundation that holds you steady. You have wisdom, and the world still needs it. And most importantly, you have today. So use today. Move your body, even if it's just a little. Reach out to someone, even if it's just a quick hello. Learn something new, even if it's just a single fact. Prepare your meals with care, even if you're the only one eating them. Keep your home safe and welcoming. Give yourself a reason to get up tomorrow and the day after that, and the day after that. Look for beauty, collect moments, laugh often. There's strength in knowing you can care for yourself. There's pride in shaping your own days, and there's deep satisfaction in realizing that independence doesn't fade with age. It grows with every choice you make to keep living on your own terms. I've seen people in their 80s and 90s shine with a kind of light that younger folks sometimes can't understand. It's the light of someone who has been through storms, who has walked through quiet seasons, and who has learned that life is still worth showing up for. That light doesn't come from luck. It comes from living with intention. So here's what I want you to remember. You are still here, and that means there are still chapters left to write. Even small changes. One more walk, one more phone call, one more laugh can open doors to better days. I wish for you days filled with purpose, nights filled with peace, and a spirit that stays curious, kind, and strong. Your life, right now, is worth living with your whole heart, and if something you've heard today speaks to you, share it. Tell your friends, your family, or even someone you just met. Let's keep this conversation alive, because none of us are truly alone when we reach out to one another. If you found a spark of inspiration here, I'd be honored if you left a comment and shared your own ways of living strong after 80. Like this video, subscribe if you'd like to hear more, and most of all, keep building a life you're proud to wake up to. From my heart to yours, I wish you a full and joyful life at any age.